Divine Revelation, the miraculous biblical fate of Iran unveiled in 3 sacred scriptures in the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. By God's providence, the Hebrew youths, among whom was Daniel, were taken captive to the heart of the Babylonian Empire. Thus begins a lineage of faith amid trials, woven through the fabric of sacred history. In this grand narrative unfolds the story of Esther, a Jewess raised in the citadel of Shushan, under the reign of Ahasuerus, where the air was rich with the smell of spices and the laughter of the king's court masked the darkness lurking within. Esther lived under the careful guidance of her cousin Mordecai, embodying both beauty and wisdom, but it was her hidden identity as a Jew that weighed heavily on her soul. The opulent palace life forced her to cloak her true self, in stark contrast to the traditions of her fathers, which grounded her faith. As Esther adorned herself in the fine garments befitting royalty, she carried within her heart a shared grief for her people, whispered of in hushed tones throughout the citadel the wicked decree of Haman, the king's advisor, plotting against the Jews, set to annihilate them on the 13th of Adar. One fateful day, a message from Mordecai shattered her world. Do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Mordecai's words pierced through the layers of her heart, echoing against the backdrop of God's divine purpose entwined with her destiny. Fear gripped her as she contemplated approaching the king without summons, a request that could cost her life. Yet, within her, a flicker of faith ignited as she turned to prayer and fasting, invoking the God of her ancestors, seeking his guidance amid uncertainty. I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, she resolved, clutching the thin thread of hope hanging in the balance. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful stories from Scripture. Hit the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share it with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed by how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Esther donned her royal robes, fortifying her spirit with the knowledge of battles fought by her forefathers, who had endured trials more severe than hers. Each step toward the king's throne felt heavy yet resolute, as visions of the promise echoed around her, the mighty hand of God that delivered his people from bondage, sustaining them in the valley of dry bones, breathing life anew as Ezekiel had prophesied. At that moment, the conflict sharpened the intersection of personal safety and communal duty, sharpened her resolve. Would one hidden life, ignited by unwavering faith, weave the threads of deliverance for a multitude enslaved in despair? As she prepared to reveal her truth, the curtain of divine mystery poised to unravel before her. The weight of her people's fate lay upon her shoulders. The outcome remained suspended, reliant on courage profoundly rooted in her spirit as she stepped into the unknown. As Esther approached the throne, the air thickened with an unspeakable tension. The walls of the palace echoed a silence that could almost be felt, wrapping around her like a shroud. The golden room glimmered, yet its splendor seemed dim in the shadow of her heart's trembling. With each measured step, she recalled the prayers that had ascended like incense before the altar, the prayers of her people, calling upon the God of heaven and earth, whose ear was ever attentive to the cries of the righteous. Then she stood before the king, Ahasuerus, who sat upon his royal throne, robed in fine purple, his crown gleaming like the sun. His countenance, initially perplexed, transformed into one of unexpected favor as he beheld her approach. "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request?" "Even to half my kingdom it shall be given to you," he declared, his voice reverberating through the hall, a promise of safety wrapped in royal authority. Esther, her heart pounding like a drum, bowed low, her spirit enveloped in humility. "If it pleases the king," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "let the king and Haman come today to the feast that I have prepared for him." The request hung in the air, pregnant with destiny, as she glanced at Haman, who stood near, wearing a face of triumph, unaware of the storm that loomed. Intrigued, the king summoned Haman, and they gathered to partake of the feast. As they ate and drank, the aroma of roasted lamb filled the air, blending with the sweet scent of spices. The king's laughter rang out, a stark contrast to the sorrow she bore within. Yet, the weight of her purpose pressed down upon her like a great stone. Once more he turned to her. "What is your wish, Queen Esther?" "It shall be granted." The room felt alive, each moment stretching and bending under the gravity of her decision. Esther, drawing strength from God's promise, spoke. "If I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition, let my life be given me at my request, and my people at my plea, for we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated." Her voice trembled but held firm, the truth spilling forth like a torrent of waters. Ahasuerus' expression shifted, confusion and outrage flooding his face. "Who is he, and where is he, who has dared to do this?" In that moment, the eyes of the realm pivoted upon Haman, the architect of wickedness, cloaked in ambition, now unmasked before all, including the queen he sought to destroy. Esther's heart swelled with faith, administered by God's unseen hand guiding her in this divine conspiracy. With her words, the truth began to unveil the depths of Haman's treachery, igniting anger in the king's heart that swelled like a fierce storm. Haman fell upon the queen, begging for mercy, yet the decree of destruction had been set in motion. As guards entered to seize Haman, Esther's faith again shined bright amidst the impending shadows, for she knew that God's promise echoed through ages, "They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength." She felt the weight of eloquence upon her spirit, the remnants of fear lifting like morning mist. Could it be that such boldness was the very instrument of salvation for her people? Thus was the scene charged with divine tension, revealing the unfolding of a greater story that God was weaving through her life. But what remained unseen was a plan far more intricate than they could comprehend. The moment had come for God's promise to unfurl, leading all to witness the depth of His sovereign grace, declaring, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you," and in one heartbeat, the decree of heaven would change the destiny of nations. As the words of Esther echoed in the vast chamber, a heavy silence enveloped the room. Ahasuerus rose from his throne, his face a tempest of rage and astonishment. The regal fabric of his purple robe rippled as he moved, his heart beating with the gravity of betrayal. "Who is this man that would bring such wickedness upon my queen and her people?" he thundered, fixing his piercing gaze upon Haman, who quaked beneath his wrath. "I am innocent, your majesty." Haman stammered, desperation clawing at his voice. "It was the decree of the king. I sought only to fulfill the royal command." But his words fell flat, swallowed by the storm brewing in the king's heart. Esther's eyes remained steadfast upon the king, her spirit anchored in the name of the Lord, her God. "O king, this man has plotted evil against my people, seeking our destruction. He has woven a web of deceit, and I, being but a servant of God, stand before you bearing the weight of our plight." With a gesture, Ahasuerus summoned his officers. "Hastily bring forth the scrolls," he commanded, his voice fierce as the roar of a lion. The guards rushed to fetch the record of Haman's treachery, lingering yet in the shadows of the solarium. As they returned, the scroll unfurled before the king, and he read the dreadful words penned in Haman's cruel hand. "It is so," Ahasuerus declared, tempestuous anger lighting his brow. "For this deed, may his fate be tenfold." The king turned to Haman, who now sank to his knees, the weight of his sins evident in his bewildered, ashen face. "Let it be known," Ahasuerus proclaimed, "this wicked man shall find no refuge. Let him be hung upon the gallows he has prepared for the innocent." In that moment, as the guards restrained Haman, the Spirit of the Lord stirred within Esther. She felt a surge of divine affirmation as she whispered a fervent prayer for her people. God, in His infinite wisdom, had orchestrated the unveiling of light against the darkness of sin, and she stood as a humble vessel in His sovereign plan. As Haman was led away to suffer his just fate, Ahasuerus turned his gaze back to Esther, his anger softening into a realm of protection. "Speak now, Queen Esther. What more shall be done for your people?" His words cascaded like a gentle rain upon her weary heart. "Let a decree be written in the king's name," she began, joy igniting within her, for it is our right to defend ourselves against our enemies. With her words sealing the fate of their liberation, Ahasuerus agreed, issuing a new decree that would enable Esther's people to rise against their oppressors, a counter to Haman's serpent-like plotting. As the day waned and the sun dipped low, casting shades of gold upon the city, the heart of the kingdom shifted. The remnant of God's chosen people, long beset by shadows, felt a stirring of hope. Esther, clothed in grace, wept joyous tears for her people, and heaven echoed her relief. Yet, even as the plans for deliverance unfurled, Esther pondered in her heart the deeper mysteries of God's sovereign hand. For what was it, she wondered, that lay beyond their salvation? What greater destiny was God weaving through her life, one that mirrored the covenant held by the prophets of old? Fear not, O land of Israel, she sensed in her spirit, for a greater revelation awaits. And as she basked in the glow of newfound hope, she whispered aloud, even now, the heart of God beats for his people, casting forth plans for their prosperity. For surely, even in this moment, the Almighty is at work to declare his glory among the nations. And it came to pass that the sun set on that fateful day, illuminating the triumph of the queen and the impending doom of the adversary. Across the land, the Jews, once cloaked in despair, began to rejoice, for hope stirred within their hearts as word spread of the king's decree granting them the right to defend themselves. Esther, with her heart full of purpose, sought counsel from her cousin Mordecai, who had steadfastly been her guide. Mordecai, let us gather the people in prayer and fasting, she urged, her voice imbued with the earnestness of her spirit. For we must seek the favor of the Lord, that he might deliver us from our enemies. Mordecai, humbled by the queen's wisdom, called upon the elders of the Jews. Proclaim a fast throughout the cities of Persia, he commanded, for the hour of reckoning draws near. As the days passed, the sound of united supplication rose to heaven, filled with cries for mercy and strength. In that time, Haman met his just end upon the gallows he had prepared, and the memory of his wickedness was woven into the annals of history as a reminder to those who sought the ruin of God's chosen. In the very moment of his demise, the hands of fate turned toward salvation, orchestrated by the hidden providence of the Almighty. Yet, unbeknownst to Esther, the plans of God were deeper than she perceived. As she prepared to celebrate the deliverance of her people, she was visited in her dreams by visions of the past and hints of the future. Spirits of the prophets whispered, revealing her destiny intertwined with the ancient covenant. The words of the prophet Jeremiah echoed in her mind, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah 29 verse 11, awakening from her slumber, she pondered deeply upon these words. Was I not made for such a time as this? She questioned, echoing the words spoken earlier, laden with significance. In the stillness, she perceived the shadows of a greater purpose looming just beyond her grasp. With renewed strength, Esther summoned the will to act not just as a queen but as a means through which God's plan would unfold. She organized a grand banquet, inviting Ahasuerus and Haman's 10 sons, offering a feast of gratitude for the deliverance that had begun. In the feasting and rejoicing, she sought to bless her people and illuminate the path towards their future. As the banquet unfolded, Ahasuerus, filled with wine and joy, raised his chalice. "What is your petition, Esther, and it shall be granted," he proclaimed, his heart swelling with favor towards her. At the heart of the celebration, however, rested a divine tension. For though salvation was at hand, the king's heart was still a canvas upon which God's hand would paint an even grander climax. For Esther's role had not reached its completion, the fulcrum of Israel's salvation still awaited revelation. "Let us feast, my king," Esther replied, her eyes reflecting both joy and a deeper understanding. "But, if I have found grace in your sight, let the king and Haman come again tomorrow for a banquet I shall prepare." In that momentary pause, as the words hung in the air, the king's curiosity piqued. Little did he know that the echo of Esther's faith would draw forth a greater deliverance, and the clang of fate would not merely strike an end, but unveil the beginning of a promise fulfilled. As the evening transitioned into night, the thoughts of Esther turned inward. What lay ahead for her people? What revelation would spring forth from her obedience? In whispered prayers, she sought the heart of God, yearning for understanding. And in the stillness, she felt him move, a gentle stirring as of a plot unfolding, a plan unlike any they had imagined. For even now, she felt the very heartbeat of Israel echoing through the heavens, anticipating the manifestation of God's sovereign grace and power. For surely, the hour is at hand, she mused quietly, and even in our suffering, God orchestrates our deliverance. What divine mysteries remained wrapped in the fullness of his plan? As the bonds of Haman's deceit lay broken, Esther's heart burned with hope, and her faith would soon unveil the greater glory to come. And it came to pass in the stillness of the night, as the stars cast their shimmering spell over the kingdom, that Esther, burdened yet resolute, sought the Lord with fervent prayer. She implored the Almighty, O Lord of hosts, grant me wisdom and fortitude, that I might reveal that which lies in darkness. With dawn's early light, a new day arose, heavy with expectation. The sun peeked over the horizon, gentle yet resolute, illuminating the faces of those who dared to hope. The Jews, scattered throughout the land, gathered in their homes, the remnants of fear now mingling with a spirit of courage. For news of the Queen's boldness had spread, and faith ignited hearts anew. Esther, adorned in royal garments of deep purple and shimmering gold, prepared herself for the banquet that was to unfold. She approached the setting with grace, as though each step carried the weight of both her people and their God. The chambers of Ahasuerus awaited, filled with the fragrant aroma of spices and the sounds of laughter, but undergirding the festive atmosphere lay a profound seriousness known only to her. When the king arrived, flanked by the sons of Haman, he was greeted with hospitality befitting a sovereign. "Let the heart of the king be merry," Esther proclaimed, pouring wine into his chalice. The laughter continued, and yet, Esther's heart palpitated, knowing the moment of revelation drew near. "King Ahasuerus," she began, her voice steady yet laced with emotion, "if I have found favor in your eyes, I humbly ask for my people. For we are sold, I and my nation, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated." The word struck like a piercing arrow, slicing through the mirth that once enveloped the banquet hall. The king, befuddled, cried out in confusion, "Who has dared to do such a thing?" Esther, emboldened by the Spirit of the Lord, replied, "An adversary, even this wicked Haman." She pointed his way, and silence enveloped the room, a heavy stillness so profound that one could hear the echoes of eternity. Haman stood immobilized, for the weight of his treachery had finally caught up with him. "What shall be done to this man?" the king demanded, rage boiling within him as he understood the depths of betrayal he had been blind to. Turning to his royal guard, he commanded, "Let this man be hanged upon the gallows he has prepared." As the guard seized Haman, Esther felt the warmth of hope rise in her chest. The chaos of the world outside could not penetrate the sacred moment unfolding before her. Within her spirit, a whisper echoed, reminding her of the divine plan. She remembered the words of the prophet Isaiah, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." Isaiah 54 verse 17. With the executioner's block set for Haman, the king's heart was now inclined toward the Jewish people, for God's unseen hand was at work. "Write a decree in the king's name," he instructed Mordecai, "and let the Jews be defended against those who sought their destruction." Esther's heart soared with gratitude. Their fate was intertwined with faith, revealing that even in the darkest hours, God guides the righteous, often through unexpected vessels. As Esther beheld this unexpected turn, she sensed that the true unraveling of her people's fate had only begun. The atmospheric tension that lingered bore witness to a higher purpose yet to be fulfilled. In the quiet aftermath, as the fires of retribution settled, Esther contemplated the futility of despair. "For our God is alive," she mused softly, "and his plans for our salvation far outweigh our trials." Thus, an even greater promise loomed on the horizon. Could it be that the deliverance of a nation was but the first stroke of a divine brush preparing an eternal masterpiece? "We may have found favor," she whispered into the rising dawn, "but what more awaits us as the Lord prepares to unveil his covenant with his people?" And it came to pass, after the tumult of Haman's downfall, that the kingdom of Ahasuerus breathed a sigh of relief. The decree that once carried the weight of doom was now transformed into one of protection, igniting fervent prayers of thanksgiving among the Jewish people. In the palace, Esther, filled with both relief and purpose, approached the king once more. "If it pleases the king," she implored, "let a new decree be established throughout the provinces, granting my people the strength to defend themselves against those who rise against us." Her voice resonated with faith, echoing the promises of God. King Ahasuerus, his heart softening toward Esther and her people, nodded gravely. "Write in my name, and seal it with my signet. For any decree concerning the Jewish people shall stand firm, just as my throne stands in this realm." As Mordecai and Esther set about crafting the new decree, the Spirit of the Lord moved upon them, breathing inspiration into the words they penned. On the 13th day of Adar, they decreed, "Let the Jews be gathered together in every city, to stand against their enemies, armed not only with weapons of war but with faith in the Lord their God." The news of deliverance spread like fire upon the dry ground, kindling hope in the hearts of the Israelites. Elders gathered, speaking of the promises made to their forefathers, of the covenants and the deliverance that would surely come. "For though we are scattered like sheep, our shepherd is not far from us," they encouraged one another, remembering the words of the psalmist, "He protects all his bones, not one of them will be broken." Psalm 34 verse 20. However, in the shadows, the remnants of Haman's wickedness still stirred. Fear and treachery sought to rise anew, yet the people, emboldened by the decree, began to prepare. They called upon the Lord with fervent cries, "O God, rescue us as you did in the days of old. Remember the deliverance of Egypt, and send forth your mighty hand." Their prayers ascended to the heavens, mingling with incense as Mordecai led them in supplication. "For it is not by our might or power but by the Spirit of God that we shall overcome," he declared amongst the assembly, inspiring a mighty roar of faith. Esther watched, her spirit ignited, as the people united in purpose and prayer, trusting in their God who had brought them to this moment. Yet even among their joy, Esther felt the weight of a deeper mystery unfolding. She sensed the stirring of God's greater plan, one that extended beyond their immediate deliverance. What if, she pondered silently, this deliverance serves as a call, not merely for our survival, but to be a light unto the nations? As the day of battle approached, the courage of the Jews grew like the dawn breaking upon a darkened world. They fashioned swords and shields, but more importantly, they fortified their hearts with the truth that God was with them. Then came an unsettling silence on the eve of deliverance, as an oppressive stillness cloaked the land. Even the whispers of the night seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the divine intervention they so earnestly sought. In the sacred quiet, Esther once again knelt before the Lord, her heart a torrent of prayers. "What have you planned for us, O Lord? This is but the beginning, yet what is the fullness of your purpose?" For across the expanse, God was weaving his tapestry of redemption, and Esther, chosen for such a time as this, felt both the hope and the weight of their unfolding story. But lo, what lay ahead would be a revelation far beyond their comprehension, as his promises stretched into eternity. Would they witness a destiny that not only fulfilled their fate but echoed into the annals of history, forever marking God's faithfulness? "Tomorrow shall unveil the sovereign hand of the Almighty," she breathed, and a divine expectation settled, heralding a truth yet to be revealed about his everlasting covenant with his people. And it came to pass when the dawn broke upon the 13th day of Adar, the tremors of expectancy gripped every heart that belonged to the people of Israel. The light of the morning sun pierced the stillness, bathing the congregation in hope. Esther, having risen before the break of day, gathered her resolve as she donned her royal garments, each thread woven with the prayers of her people. "Mordecai," she called, finding her cousin amidst the throng of gathered warriors, "the day has come. Let us go forth to remind our brethren that the Lord goes before us." Her eyes sparkled with courage, radiating the conviction embedded in her heart. Their fight was not against flesh and blood, but against the darkness that sought their destruction. Mordecai stood firm, a pillar of strength and faith among the multitude. "Indeed, our God has not forsaken us," he declared, his voice echoing through the gathering. "This day shall testify to his deliverance. For it is written, and he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that brings forth its fruit in its season. Psalm 1 verse 3. We shall stand and bear fruit in spite of our trials. As the sun ascended in the heavens, casting warmth upon the land, the Jews assembled in their cities, equipped with the weapons of war, yet fortified with the unwavering faith that God would fight for them. Mothers, fathers, and children gathered together, holding tightly to one another, praying fervently for divine protection. Then the appointed hour arrived, and the sound of trumpets pierced the air, a call to arms, a rallying cry inspired by the Spirit of the Most High. The proclamation of Esther reverberated, swaying the hearts of the people. Remember our God, who delivered us before. Remember the plagues of Egypt and the miraculous sea. Our God is a God of battles, and he shall not let his people perish. And when the adversaries heard the decree and the gathering of the Jews, fear gripped the hearts of many, for the report of the Jews' unity had spread, telling tales of their resolve and a fixed reliance upon their God. Even those who conspired against them began to tremble and whisper, "Who can stand against this people? For the Lord is among them." Esther led the charge, stepping forward into the fray guided by divine authority and strength. The armies of Israel rallied, swords gleaming in the light of dawn, hearts beating as one, and the Spirit of God descended among them like a mighty wind. They raised their voices together, proclaiming the Lord's mighty deeds, echoing the ancient songs of Zion. As the clashes rang out, the heavens opened, and a fearsome darkness fell upon those who sought harm against Israel. Confusion spread amidst their ranks, for the hand of the Almighty was against them, and each battle cry turned into a cry of despair. Then came the moment of truth. Esther, having fought valiantly, sensed within her spirit a calling beyond the realm of merely earthly battles. "O Lord," she cried, her voice mingling with the shouts of victory, "could it be that this struggle fulfills a greater destiny? Is this battle not a sign of a new covenant being established?" In that moment, when darkness seemed to engulf, a mighty light shone from the depths of her spirit, illuminating the true purpose laid out by God. She pondered deeply, for she knew there was more at work than the simple deliverance of her people. Across the nation, excitement surged as lives were miraculously transformed by the hand of God. He was revealing his sovereign plan, even amidst the clamor of battle, a reminder that there was still much to be made manifest in faithful hearts. "Prepare yourselves, O people," she called out. "For the deliverance we experience today will be written in the annals of time, it shall echo through generations." As victory unfolded throughout the land, Esther's heart brimmed with anticipation. For they had been called not just for their own preservation but to usher in a light to the nations, revealing God's faithful love and redemptive power. Truly, the unfolding of such a miracle would harbor a revelation far beyond their greatest hopes, a destiny intertwined with the world, beckoning all to come and witness the wonders of God. Thus the chapter closed on a day marked by deliverance, yet the profound question lingered in the air: what divine destiny awaited them, and how many hearts would be drawn to the God of Israel through this momentous event? The fullness of his plan was yet to be revealed, stretching into eternity. And it came to pass, as the battle raged on, that the cries of the Israelites mingled with the thundering of feet and the clashing of swords. The air was thick with tension, yet a palpable assurance cloaked the hearts of God's chosen people. Their faith surged like a great wave, emboldening them for the fight ahead. Esther, amidst the tumult, climbed the hill that overlooked the chaos, her heart beating in rhythm with the fervent prayers of her people. "O Lord," she proclaimed with all her strength, "let thy hand be upon this day." And as she raised her hands to the heavens, the sun seemed to linger above them, a celestial witness to their plight. Then Mordecai, emboldened by the Spirit, joined her. "Remember our heritage, dear cousin. For it is written, our help is in the name of the Lord, who made heaven and earth." Psalm 124 verse 8. Today, his name shall be glorified. The words ignited a fervor amongst the warriors, encouraging them to lift their voices in unison, chanting praises that echoed high and deep, shaking the very foundations of the earth. Yet the enemies of Israel, emboldened by their bloodlust, charged forward, thinking their strength would overcome. Little did they understand that the God of Israel was stirring, that he had already ordained this moment of deliverance. Confusion fell upon them, shadows danced within their ranks as panic took root, for they could not fathom the resolve ignited within the hearts of the people they sought to subdue. The battlefield became a theater of divine affirmation. O righteousness! Esther cried out when a surge of faith fell upon her, shine forth upon us like the dawn. May the fate of the wicked be sealed. With her voice elevated, she summoned both the heavens and earth to bear witness, for this day would be immortalized in the annals of history. Suddenly, a mighty wind began to howl, and the earth trembled beneath the feet of the adversaries. Their advance faltered, and within their cowering hearts, fear grew like a wild vine, entangling each evil intent. Esther's heart raced as she discerned the overwhelming liberation of God's people unfolding in real time, the prophetic destiny of her lineage and the promise handed down to Israel encompassing that very moment. See, O Lord, how the hearts of our enemies quake, Esther continued unabated, watching as their ranks became chaotic and disjointed. With each moment, the dynamic shifted further into the light of God's providence. Then came to pass an event unprecedented. As the Israelites pushed forward in unified force, a great sign appeared in the heavens. The sky cracked open and an angelic host descended, arrayed in radiant splendor, a celestial army sent forth in response to the cries of the faithful. They were cloaked in light, wielding divine instruments of battle, their presence igniting a renewed vigor amongst the Israelites. Behold, the angels of the Lord encamp round about them that fear him. Mordecai shouted, and upon his voice, the Israelites surged, charging forth with renewed strength. Their enemies, now in retreat, found themselves ensnared by their own disarray, confusion reigning as their plans turned to folly. The hand of the Lord, invisible yet potent, revealed itself through the chaos, and the tide of victory turned. In the midst of victory, Esther sought the Lord in her heart. What of the future, O God? What destiny lies ahead for us and for the nations? She trembled at the depths of the question, and in that sacred moment, a whisper carried upon the wind reached her ears, a poignant promise echoing through her spirit. For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. Jeremiah 29 verse 11. As the dust settled and the shouts of triumph arose, Esther and Mordecai understood their struggle unveiled a deeper revelation. Their purpose resounded not merely as victors, but as heralds of God's covenant extending beyond Israel to the very ends of the earth. Thus, the day culminated in unprecedented victory, but questions yet lingered. Whispers of a greater mystery filled the air. How far would the seeds of this deliverance spread, and what new covenant would emerge from the ashes of this battle? The alignment of God's divine purpose awaited its full revelation, unfurling with every passing moment. And it came to pass that as the noise of clashing swords subsided, a profound stillness enveloped the battlefield. The echoes of victory resonated deeply within the hearts of Israel, and gratitude arose like incense to heaven. Esther and Mordecai, weary yet triumphant, descended the hill, securing not only their lives but also the identity and legacy of their people. Look, dear cousin, Mordecai spoke, his voice firm yet tender. The Lord has delivered us from the hand of our enemies. This day shall be a reminder of his faithfulness, for we are preserved by his mighty hand. The people gathered around them in a sacred assembly, raising their hands in worship, proclaiming the majesty of the Lord. For his mercy endures forever. They chanted, their voices harmonizing in a crescendo of praise. Each warrior, each mother, each child felt the gravity of their shared deliverance, and in this moment, they were united. Yet, amidst the joy, a shadow flickered in the recesses of Esther's heart. What is to become of us, O Lord? She beseeched inwardly. Though we have tasted victory, is the battle truly over? As day turned into night, and the stars adorned the firmament, the Israelites returned to their homes, hearts aflame with hope yet shrouded in the uncertainty of what lay beyond. Questions lingered, wrapped in a veil of solemnity. The whispers of prophecy filled the air as the elders gathered. It is written, one intoned gravely, that the day shall come when a great leader will arise from among us, a deliverer who will guide us unto righteousness. Isaiah 11 verses 1-2. We must remain vigilant and faithful, for this battle may be but a prelude to greater trials. As they spoke, Esther lingered on the edge of the gathering, her heart strumming the chords of destiny. She recalled the whispers she had heard during battle, reminding her of Israel's future. What might this promise encompass? She pondered, her spirit yearning for divine clarity. The moments unfolded, weaving the fabric of destiny that God had stitched long before. Mordecai approached her, sensing her troubled thoughts. "Cousin, the Lord has shown us his might today. Yet, we must prepare our hearts for the days ahead. The plans of God are far-reaching, encompassing not just our liberation but the hope for many nations." Esther nodded solemnly, aware of the weight upon her. "Indeed, Mordecai. Let us not forget our purpose. We must stand as lighthouses amidst the storm to illuminate the pathway for others. For verily, it is written, nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising." Isaiah 60 verse 3. And in the midst of their solemn reflections, a sudden divine revelation washed over Esther as if the very heavens opened. She perceived a mighty hand guiding not just their fate, but the fate of others, an interconnected tapestry woven by divine intention. With fervor, she turned her gaze toward the horizon. "Speak, Lord. What is the destiny that awaits us? What shall become of our brothers and sisters beyond this land?" In that sacred moment, Esther's eyes glimmered with dawning insight. She recognized that God was calling her not merely for her people's emancipation but for a greater role in his divine plan, a pathway that lay beyond their immediate struggles. As night deepened and the stars glimmered like promises in the sky, a stirring began to unfold within her heart. She felt the tug of a cosmic purpose, one that would extend far into the future, a mystery unfolding through centuries uncounted. "Behold, the Lord has plans for us," she declared with newfound confidence, "for the promise of hope shall echo through generations to come, and nations shall know of his goodness." Her declaration hung in the night air, a calling unto the people. The shadows of what was to come loomed still, yet beneath them pulsed the bright thread of divine promise, an unshakable hope that whispered a truth yet to be fully unveiled. The moment had come for God's promise to echo in the hearts of nations yet unknown. And it came to pass in the days that followed, as the echoes of victory still reverberated in the hearts of Israel, that Esther summoned the elders and leaders of the Jewish people. They gathered in the citadel of Shushan, their hearts aflame with thanksgiving yet filled with questions and wonder. "Brothers and sisters in faith," Esther began, her voice steady and filled with conviction, "this day marks not just our deliverance from mortal peril, but the birth of a legacy rooted in the promises of our God. The hand of the Almighty has been stretched forth for our salvation, as it has been written." She paused, allowing her words to settle upon the crowd, their faces illuminated with the light of hope. "Let us remember the covenant made with Abraham, that we are a people chosen to be a blessing and a light unto the nations." Genesis 12 verse 2. Mordecai stepped forward, his countenance reflecting the weight of leadership. "Indeed, dear cousin. We have seen how God has moved mightily among us, but we must not grow complacent. The battle may not be over, for the shadows still threaten our future." Esther's heart swelled at his words, instinctively sensing that their victory was but a chapter in a more profound narrative woven throughout time. "You speak wisely, Mordecai. Let us proclaim a day of feasting and rejoicing, a celebration of our God's unwavering faithfulness. Yet, as we gather in celebration, let us also prepare our spirits and hearts for the path ahead." And so it was that she called for a new festival to be established, an annual remembrance of their deliverance, a day when they would feast and recount the mighty deeds of the Lord. They named it Purim, for, by the casting of lots, Haman had sought to destroy them, yet their lot had turned to joy. The people rejoiced to hear of Esther's vision, for the joy of a covenant made manifest resonated deeply within their spirits. As they gathered to celebrate, they recounted the tales of old, how God had delivered their ancestors from Egypt, how he had torn down Jericho's walls, and how he had led David to victory against Goliath. Each story breathed life into the hearts of the faithful, igniting a fervor that swept through the crowd. Yet, even amidst their joyous gathering, Esther still felt a heaviness in her spirit. "O Lord," she whispered under her breath, "what of those who dwell in dark shadows beyond our walls? What of the nations that do not yet know your name? Could it be that you have called us not just for our own sakes but for those who wander in search of truth? As if in response, she recalled the words spoken by Isaiah, "It is too small a thing for you to be my servant to restore the tribes of Jacob and to bring back those of Israel I have kept. I will also make you a light for the Gentiles, that you may bring my salvation to the ends of the earth." Isaiah 49 verse 6. Her eyes sparkled with revelation, the weight of divine purpose dawning upon her. Let us not merely safeguard our deliverance, but let us extend our hands toward those who wait in darkness. For perhaps our history will ignite a hope in them that will echo through generations. The elders listened in awe as Esther spoke, the very breath of prophecy spilling forth from her lips. The weight of her insight gripped their hearts. They began to understand that their victory in Shushan was to be woven into a larger tapestry of divine design, one that foresaw future generations kneeling at the feet of the Almighty. Mordecai raised his voice, amplified by shared understanding. Yes. Let us send forth messengers into the surrounding lands, proclaiming not only our salvation but the goodness of our God. Let us become lighthouses drawing the lost toward the shore of His grace. The crowd erupted with agreement, their hearts aligned under the banner of faith and hope. The message was clear: they were to be instruments of God's love, uniting in faith to pierce the stranglehold of fear that gripped their world. And as they concluded their gathering, letting the echoes of grateful songs resonate, Esther gazed heavenward, feeling the divine mystery wrap around her like a cloak. For surely, she breathed, the moment had come for God's promise to extend beyond our deliverance and awaken the hearts of nations yet unknown. In that moment of unity and revelation, the sparks of destiny ignited anew, and the room filled with a fervor that signified more than mere survival, it heralded an awakening. The covenant established by God's people was expanding, weaving a path that would echo through the ages, and thus, set the stage for the unfolding of a divine testament that would forever reshape the course of history.